On January 7th, 2026, Renee Good was involved in an incident, I'm using the word very loosely here, incident, with an ICE officer that resulted in her being shot multiple times, and I will be diving into the specifics of that in a moment. What I want to do is also talk about the comparisons some people online feel the need to make comparisons and reactions to those of the shooting of one Charlie Kirk. Now, for those of you who have just woken up from a coma, first off, I'm so sorry you're in the darkest timeline. Second, Charlie Kirk was a far-right podcaster who was shot and killed on September 10th, 2025 at Utah Valley University. Now, online reactions to the shootings of Renee Good have been polarizing. I'll give my personal thoughts down the road, but for the most part, everyone has strong feelings on both sides of the aisle in one way or the other. A vast majority of people do believe, myself included, that this shooting was not justified in any way, shape, or form. While quite a few people, shocking bootlickers really, are actually saying just comply and you won't get shot, which that's not how a free state works, but moving on. While Trump, Noam, and Vance have all come out aggressively justifying the shooting, as well as posthumously attacking Good for being a far-left anarchist, which that's one strategy. But okay, let's begin with the comparisons here. Some of the online reaction I've seen goes as far as saying, you lefties cheered when Kirk died, but now that it's a lesbian Antifa anarchist, it is not okay. To which, first off, go take a shower, you brave keyboard warrior. Second, right here, that's for you. Lastly, most people on the left did condemn the shooting of Charlie Kirk. I was by no means a fan of his, but no one should die due to their political beliefs. That said, his rhetoric was clearly pro-gun at the cost of any human life to protect our rights. I don't think we can compare this podcaster who made millions of stoking far-right radical stereotypes to a woman who was in a car moving and getting out of the way. Additionally, I think the reason why there's so much backlash to the shooting of Good is because of the lack of accountability. Several prominent figures on both sides condemned the killing of Kirk. The FBI deployed all resources. It was around-the-clock news. Kirk's assassin was found and arrested and is being charged. There was accountability. But with Renee Good died, the jackass, the babyface, and the plastic all came out attacking Good immediately. And as of the time of this recording, the FBI are stonewalling local officials in Minnesota and are refusing to cooperate with local law enforcement. It's very clear that the federal government has no interest in pursuing this case, and when you think about it, it's very clear why. On one level, I think the three dipshits are worried about the potential of lawsuits if found that they played a role, no matter how small, in empowering ICE agents on such a level that this jackass, who's been identified since as Jonathan Ross, could feel like he could open fire on someone, let alone not once, but 3 times. I will argue it was unjustified force, and I'll die on that hill. The wheels were turned away. She was leaving, and yet he felt threatened, and fired multiple times. Then agents refused medical care for Good from a local physician that was there, and then the asshole fled the scene, which is against the handbook in literally every single law enforcement agency. In their own manual of ICE, it dictates an ICE agent cannot use deadly force if someone is fleeing the scene. And even then, if he puts himself in front of the vehicle and actively gets in front, he's put himself in a dangerous situation. But again, go back to the footage. He was on the side of the vehicle, wheels turned, she was leaving. And then he's shot. Not once, but 3 times. Regardless, protests have erupted all over the country, justifiably so. The shooting was needless, but also it's a frightening sign of things to come and escalation. As of the time of this recording, which is 2:50 p.m. on January 15th, Donald Trump has floated the idea of using the Insurrection Act to deploy the military in Minnesota. Additionally, if I'm remembering correctly, Governor Walz is floating the idea of actually bringing in the National Guard to protect locals from ICE as they're smashing windows and, to be frank, terrorizing people unjustifiably so. There's maybe things of signs to come. This is what happens when you have undertrained, undereducated, underdisciplined dumbasses playing military Gestapo. This shooting was so blatantly wrong that even Chris Tucker and Joe Rogan are criticizing ICE, and they're about as red as they come. So what's next? Well, again, like I said, there's no chance in hell the government will be charging the agent, but that doesn't matter. He is not free of prosecution. The state can still prosecute him, but it would end up falling in federal court. They need to prove that he was acting outside of his federal duties and charge him with either first, second, or third degree murder. Meaning a federal judge would have to determine whether or not his actions were within the scope of his federal duties, or if he was acting within the bounds of his federal duties. And with that, Trump cannot pardon him. But ultimately, it might come down to one judge, and if it decides to hold this ICE agent accountable, it might set a precedent for other states to sue ICE agents in the same vein and finally provide some level of accountability for their actions. Now, also just today, a few hours ago, a judge did come out stating that she would not issue a temporary restraining order to kick ICE out of Minnesota, at least until more evidence is presented to her to justify why she needs to kick out an entire goddamn agency, which, I mean, go on social media for 5 minutes in that area and you'll see the justification. It's gotten so bad that they've actually suspended school until February 12th, at least, again, as of the time of this recording. Stay safe out there, record everything, know your rights. You do not have to open the door unless they have a warrant, and even then, they have to show it to you. They can't just say, we have a warrant. Be safe out there.